Guys, welcome back. It is Tuesday morning, great sunny day in England, and we have Paul Anthony Claxton, AI venture capitalist, on the show today again for the AI Unplugged BC and PE series. Paul, I'd like to hand it right over to our guest. No fluff. Who are you? What do you do? And why should anybody stay on this podcast for the next hour to listen to what you have to say? What kind of pain did that create for you and your business?
Absolutely. Paul Claxton. So I started my professional career as a U.S. Marine, completed 4 combat tours, spent 10 years on active duty with the Marine Corps, which really gave me a kind of hard knocks, blue, very, very clear blue sky approach to life. And, I took a path that less have taken, and it's certainly led to an interesting kind of unorthodox stories that I could have never. It's led me into situations and experiences that I could have only dreamed about. But being a Marine for 10 years definitely instilled in me a different way of thinking. Kill or be killed attitude, so to speak, which actually works very well if you're an entrepreneur. And I believe that's why I've been so successful as an entrepreneur for 10 years now, which ultimately led me into my career as an entrepreneur has ultimately led me into venture capital, where I've also been successful. I've been a VC for about 6 years now. And ultimately, I just look at the market a lot differently than your typical, what I would say your typical VC or your typical entrepreneur does. The Marine Corps is just, really, like I said, giving me a different approach and a different viewpoint and perspective on things.
So I've met a ton of Marines, never really had any great, interesting conversations other than a few text messages here and there. One of them, his name is Gavin Tice. He's a really good friend of mine. And he mentioned to me, a lot of people claim that they're in the Marines, but not a lot of them are actually in the battlefield. None of them are actually on site or fighting. Some of them are just fixing trucks, or they're at base and they never leave the country. So what kind of, if it's okay with you, I'd love to ask you, you said you was actually in the grains, in the weeds of things. Where were you in the Marines?
My first tour was during the invasion of Iraq in 2003.
Wow.
My first worthy battle, I guess you could say, that I was in was the Battle of Nasiriyah. So that was, being 20, 21 years old at the time, it was a very surreal moment for me. It's like if you can think of your any sci-fi movie, the worlds, anything like that. I Am Legend. If you can think of any movie that you've watched, like sci-fi, and how it keeps you on the edge of your seat, and you literally feel like you're in a different world. It felt like I was on the movie set. Only it wasn't a movie set. This was real life. We're getting shot at. We're taking fire. It's pitch black at night, and I don't know what's going to happen next. So, yeah.
Did you ever see anybody die with you?
We've seen all sorts of things in Iraq. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of war, right? That's the nature of combat. So, yeah.
And do they train you mentally because those things I heard are very hard to kind of deal with?
Oh, absolutely. So before before my unit deployed, there was a threat of nuclear, biological, chemicals from Saddam, and we were afraid that we were being prepared, for the inevitability of him attacking us with those. Right, he had Scud missiles, and that was probably the biggest threat out of everything. It wasn't the boots that he had on the ground. It wasn't the soldiers. He had the third largest army in the world, but it wasn't the capability of his soldiers. It was actually his nuclear arsenal. And so we were being shown pictures of what we could expect. Skin falling off, nuclear biological chemicals eating you from the inside out, hunks of shrapnel being thrown into you. They were indoctrinating these images and this experience into us preemptively before we got over there. Fortunately, Saddam did attempt to use his nuclear. He did use his nuclear biological chemicals and missiles, but we had a great air defense. We had a great defense to respond to that, and all of his Scud missiles were shot down, thankfully.
Wow! Look, this is probably the most exciting. I'm generally curious about this because it's an interesting topic, and it's not usually the theme that we go down. But wow, that's very, very interesting. So, when you got out of the Marines, what year was it then that you left the Marines, or that you came home?
So I actually left in 2004 for about 2.5 months, okay. And I decided that it wasn't the right time for me to make. I was definitely not ready for that transition to leave the Marine Corps and at 22, 23 years old to take on a new life as a civilian. So ultimately, I went back to the Marine Corps. I spent another several years in the Marine Corps, finally leaving for good in 2010.
And do they prepare you then for anything around being an entrepreneur, getting into business? Because I assume, that's question one. Do they prepare you for anything in the real world around like becoming a business entrepreneur, studying for it? What kind of preparation do you have to come from being a fighter and survival into being a citizen in the human world? What's that transition like? Or how do they prepare you?
Well, I think they say once a Marine, always a Marine for a reason, because we never really fully make that transition. I'm still very much a Marine, right? Both physically, mentally, and spiritually. So, directly, do they prepare? They try. They put you through resume classes, which don't really do much good, right? I mean, resumes, if you can build a resume, but if you don't know how to use that resume as a tool, it's not going to do any good for you. Resume doesn't get you the job. It's a tool to maybe get you looked at, but it's not going to get you the job. And unfortunately, I don't think there's much that the military can do to prepare you for what it's like out here as a civilian, because it's very different for everyone, Mm-hmm. And so you have to kind of rebuild yourself from the ground up, so to speak. And so directly, I think they do the best that they can, from a tactical standpoint, but from an experiential standpoint, or assigning you mentors or helping you get a job, like actually helping you get a job, versus just kicking you to the curb and saying that's the end of your time. They don't do that part very well. But mm-hmm. what they do indirectly is they build you a mindset. Yeah. And so, me coming out of the Marine Corps, I didn't even know what a non-disclosure agreement was. I knew nothing about business, but yeah. I had hustle. I had intestinal fortitude. I had resilience. And I knew that, I'm mentally tough here. I can get through anything. I've been through all this as a Marine. I've been through combat, et cetera, et cetera. I've done all this. Surely I can do this as a civilian, right? Surely I can do a 9-to-5 job, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, what they don't necessarily prepare you for the fact that, civilians think very differently, right? In the Marine Corps or in the military, our work goes home with us. We're always a Marine. We're always on call. But when you're out here in the private sector as a civilian, you go to work 9 to 5 and that's it. You're done for the day. You go to your personal life at that point. That's not how it works in the military. And so every civilian doesn't think like that. They weren't cement it with that kind of thinking where we're always on, right? And so you know, I think you know, just coming to accept that you know, was probably the hardest part. And then not having the structure, of course, as well, because being in the Marine Corps is like being on planet Earth. There's gravity, there's structure, there's air, but being a civilian is like floating out in space, not knowing if you're going to get hit by an asteroid or, you know, where you're going to end up. There's no structure. You have to create that structure. And so that's what I've done. That's what I've worked really, really hard to do over the past 10, 15 years since I've been out.
Wow, that's an incredible story. So what was the first experience outside of the Marine Corps? You've come home. How long did it take you to find your first hobby in terms of career? Did you go right into venture capital? Did you go right into PE? Did you take time with the family? What was kind of the first move for you?
No, you know, I actually jumped into it. I was very lost at first, like every person in their mid to late 20s is, right? I knew I didn't want to stay in the Marine Corps. I had 10 years in. So, okay, if I do another contract, it's going to put me at 14 years. At that point, I'm just going to go the whole 20. So I'm really at a diversion. I'm at a crossroads here where either I go left or I go right. But one thing is for sure, if I go left, I'm going left all the way. If I go right, I'm going right all the way. So, you know, I didn't foresee with 4 tours in Iraq. I was about to go on a 5th tour had I not have gotten out of the Marine Corps. And I just saw no end in sight to this war that we were fighting. And I saw the justification of that war start to become more and more opaque and less transparent to me as the years went on. And I said, you know, if I'm going to spend 20 years in the Marine Corps, I am going to be fighting a perpetual war. There's no doubt about it. And I just didn't believe in it anymore. And the thing is that the Marine Corps is one of those places, all the military is, but especially the Marine Corps is one of those places that if you're not in it 99%, then you should just get out because they will make your life a living hell. And so I ended up applying to the CIA and the NSA, and having such a stellar career in the Marine Corps, I couldn't understand why they didn't at least respond to me. And in hindsight, I think I know why. My oldest brother was in prison for 4 years. He was in gangs, and he's done a lot of stuff. But I said, well, maybe that's why. So, you know, at that point, I said, okay, I'm out here. I'm a civilian now. I don't know what to do. I'm not making as much money as I used to make when I was a Marine. I don't know. I'm not comfortable with my level of living, with my lifestyle. You know, I'm not. I had a nice condo. I drove a Lexus, and I had to downgrade. I'm now living with roommates. I'm driving a beater car. At one time, I didn't even have a car. I'm like, this really sucks. This really sucks because I haven't proved that I'm worthy of making that X amount of money as a civilian, right? I did it in the Marine Corps, but for being a civilian, it was starting all over again, right? And so I said, well, maybe I'll go back to the military, and they gave me an OCS commission. And I realized how political that was, and I'm like, I don't think I want.
What is an LCS? Just for those who don't know, including
OCS
myself.
is Officer Candidate School. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I realized how political that was, and I'm like, I don't think I want to do that either. So I'm just going to stay out. So then I said, I really like working with people. I like helping people. And I became a recruiter. So I worked technology recruitment, executive placement search for 2 years on 100% commission. And that led me into more staffing roles. I worked for Fortune 500 companies leading IT staffing divisions. I ended up from there moving into project management work at a software company that built software and products for the staffing industry. And then from there, more project management work. I got a role at a marketing firm, and just continued to have a couple more tenures. And finally, I decided I'm still not finding my home in the civilian world, and I just don't feel fulfilled. I think I'll either drop the corporate act and I'll go and work with Garda Security as a security contractor in Kabul, Afghanistan, or I'll start my own entrepreneur company. So I started my own company, and I bootstrapped it within like 3 months. I couldn't believe it. Within like 3 or 4 months, we were doing like over 20K a month in revenue. So I literally started it from broke, because the impetus, the epiphany was the fact that I had been laid off from my PM position, my project manager role. And I was just tired of the whole corporate circus. And I'm like, either I'm dropping this corporate thing and I'm going to go do security work in Afghanistan, or I'm going to build my own brand, my own company. And I knew nothing about entrepreneurship, but I knew one thing. I knew you had to have hustle and grit, and I knew I had that. And so that's why I'm still here today.
That's an awesome story. All right. So just before we get into the entrepreneurship world, what kind of money are security contractors making in Afghanistan if you're, like, let's say, patrolling a very high profile case or high profile family?
Yeah. At the time, my job offer was $70,000 a year, tax free.
Decent. Not bad, but definitely can't compare to being anywhere near VC and PE. So you've scaled startups. You've raised, I think it's 8 figures in capital. You now run a fund with a priority AI diligence engine, if I'm right. So what lessons about founder market fit have you learned that most investors still miss?
I've been in a couple of books on venture capital and leadership. One thing that I think so many people miss is that, number one, the market fluctuates, right? So it's not, a lot of founders kind of get it in their mind. I call it founder syndrome. Okay, this is who we are mentality, right? This is who we are mentality. And because like they just get that, it's nailed down and glued down in their mind, and so like they can't imagine themselves being anything else. This is who we are, and then like this is who we'll always be. And that mentality just essentially it kind of staples itself permanently, and they're incapable. They become as a founder, they become incapable of being relevant. And this happens to founders. It happens to large companies as well. But ideally, I would like to see founders, and I think many investors miss this, is like, okay, this is what they are now, but do they have the flexibility? Are they pliable enough? Is their product pliable enough? Or is the team pliable enough to say, okay, could we become this? Should they become this? Will they have to become this based on if the market does A, B, or C, right? And it's having that having that flexibility in terms of this is who we are now and what we could be. Is one thing that I personally look for. I think a lot of people miss it. And so when we invest in, when investors are looking at investing in companies, generally speaking, I think they tend to think about the product in its current state, not what it could be. And so I'm looking for generational outliers. And what that means, is I call them category killers. So generational outliers could be let's just say the iPhone, for example. Netflix is a generational outlier. They built something that has lasted and probably will last decades, Um, so I look at companies that have the flexibility to grow with the market over time, and just as well if their team has the maneuverability to adjust as well and to grow with the market over time. And so, and I always look at why do companies fail? Why do once great companies seemingly so successful, but why do they fail? Quite frankly, it's because they fail to stay relevant. So, Blockbuster, Blackberries, they're great examples. They fail to move with the market and adapt to the ever-changing VUCA environment, which, if you're not familiar with VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, those aspects of the market, right? And so I think those things are important to look at the people, not just the product.
I think you're right. So I'd be interested in knowing if you're able to share it. So what was the most exciting investment you've made since starting your journey investing in companies?
I would say right now we had a company that we were working with, and they were building an AI platform on the metaverse. Actually, that was one. Another company was actually reducing heat waste for the production of AI. So I really liked those because for example, with the metaverse company, I really like the integration of how we can build an AI environment around us. Because if you look at AI, it's very much so a cultural technology. But right now, by and large, we're interacting with it only through limited senses. So with the metaverse, we can really incorporate multimodal architecture into the metaverse and into using AI and really immerse all the senses, right? So more human being like. So when we interact with AI, generally speaking, we're interacting through the eyes and through our audio senses, right? But if we can take, for example, attack some of the other senses, engage some of the other senses, then it becomes much more immersive. So that's one reason why we chose that company. And then the other company, reducing some of the heat waste when it comes to AI production, is really tremendous. I mean, that's really huge because AI, as we all know, it's very inefficient. So
it's very true, very true. So one of the things that I read, you're the managing partner at Diligence Investments. Is that right?
That's correct.
What does Diligence stand for mean? And I'm sure that someone like of your caliber and character, there's a meaning to that word Diligence.
Yeah, Digerati was actually a technology term invented in the early 90s, and it means people who are technologically elite or experts in technology.
Okay. So you focus on technically elite AI founders. What exactly do you look for them when deciding if a founder of a startup is actually technically elite?
So generally speaking, I'm looking for people that have like a holistic a holistic capability in terms of startups, right? So like, do they know how to build process into their company? There's every company it's like a skeletal structure. It's like, you have arms, legs. Every person has arms, legs. Companies are very, very much the same way. Every company needs to have an HR department, a marketing and sales department, technology department, etc. You get it. So, do they have the capability and the resources to build lean enough where there's process embed it into each of those, because many times investors don't invest because they say no because there's no process, or at least a shortlisted process. If you're a seed company, you probably don't need an HR department, but you need to have a plan to get there, so that when the investor allocates capital or deploys capital, you're ready to go in the driver's seat. So founders that are able to build process, and then additionally, I would say founders that are both technically and operationally diverse, right? So in terms of like being a founder, how self-sufficient are you, and how self-sufficient is everyone in your company? So that doesn't just mean like, oh, we know how to build the product, right? But can you sell the product? Can you understand the market broadly enough to say, okay, there's a use case there, right? There's a use case here, or we didn't think about this, right? So can you look at the market broadly enough and determine where the hidden use cases are? Additionally, just being a technical founder, understanding how to run the business, right? So I actually, when founders come up to me and they say, "Oh, I need to send this off to my lawyer," and it's something as simple as just like maybe an NDA or something, like why are you sending it off to your lawyer? You should be resourceful enough to be able to analyze and read a contract, right? To be able to understand what terms. For goodness sakes, we have Chat GPT. You can figure it out, right?
Yeah.
And so being technically elite is actually a semantic, right? Technically elite, but you're actually technically we're elite, right? So it's kind of semantic type of tagline where we want to invest in founders who are not just kind of elite, they're technically elite. So on both sides of the coin. So that's what we look for. You don't have to be the next Elon Musk in terms of having a technical acumen, but you need to know where to get it, right? And so those things are important. Having sound advisors on the team as well, but not dead equity. People that don't just put advisors because they carry a name, but actually what are they doing, right? And then having good strategic partners as well is important. I think a lot of founders just don't have access. They just don't have access and reach. But being able to develop enough individual relationships that can open doors to organizations. Say, for example, like NVIDIA, they have an awesome program. Samsung has an awesome program. AWS Activate program. These are all some partners of Digerati that I'm mentioning off here, by the way. But if you can develop, if you don't have the relationship with me, if you don't have the relationship with my venture partner, then you're never going to get access to those programs. So developing individual relationships that can give you access to those programs, just as an example. Or someone else has access to those programs.
What do you think about the founders that try to open up their view of the market with brute force versus a tactical or a strategical approach?
Well, I don't. I mean, so what you're talking about is building products that no one likes. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think you can. I think you have to have a mix of vision and wanting to do what they say can't be done, right? You have to be willing to be an underrepresented founder. You have to be a little bit crazy, but not like cuckoo. I'll give you an example. Jeff Bezos was told that he would never sell books online. Now look,
Yeah, of course.
But he had this vision, and it wasn't too far off, And you have to look at why people are telling you that it'll never be done. Are they telling you that it can't be done because they deep down inside, they believe that it can be done. They just don't want you to beat them to it. They don't want you to shine, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a threat. You're a threat. Is that why they're telling, or are they telling you that it can't be done because it just simply can't be done in the next 10, 15, or even 20 years? I had a founder come to me that he wanted to extract water from a distant planet. I'm not going to name the planet, protecting confidentiality, but he wanted to extract water from, and I mean, the white paper, the write-ups that he had, they were of empirical nature. I mean, they were very believable, but I'm just thinking, so, and then he wants to extract this water and then sell it for $100 billion. I think it was some crazy, like $100 billion a gallon or $100 million a gallon or something. I'm like, okay, maybe that's possible in the next 50 years, but it's not in a reasonable investment timeline or horizon. So that's the far cuckoo, that's the far dimension of cuckoo. So I would say just kind of balancing those things out. Like how do we push a vision? Let's push a vision that the market knows that they want, and they're telling us it can't be done, but the market is ready for this, right? And share it at the ground floor. Share that vision with your peers, with your mentors, etc., and have them come in at the ground floor with you and support you. Because if you try to push that vision as an individual founder, then it's yours. It's not a shared vision. You need to build consensus at the early stage on the vision. Because when people are telling you that you can't do it, you're gonna need an army to do it. So yeah,
true.
I would say that, and then don't build products that no one wants. Go out there, test the product, test the market, and then build back, reiterate, and then go out and test again, build back, reiterate, because the market is the ultimate decider, right? And
Absolutely.
no one buys efficiency. No one buys efficiency. They buy effectiveness, period. And that's why AI is still around, even though it produces a lot of waste. It's not efficient, but it is effective, right? And so it's not efficient, but we need to make it more sustainable. And that's where the waste reduction comes in, like the company I told you about. We need to make it more sustainable, so that it can be more efficient, so that it can be less expensive, and it can more of it can be built at a lower cost for the everyday consumer, right? Because I have access to ChatGPT, but not everyone has access to ChatGPT. So and then there's an education piece to that as well, when it comes to building the products for the market. Like, so reducing complexity. The more that we can reduce complexity, the more the less brute force you have to use, so to speak.
Absolutely. So after, look, what is it? 4 combat tours, a decade in the Marines. How has that military background really shaped the way you invest, the way you build companies, and more importantly, like how you assess a leadership team?
It's funny. I just wrote about this the other day in one of my newsletters, but so I look at companies as if they were potential con artists, as if it was a fix, Um, and I think we've seen overhyped companies raised up to massive valuations, and then they completely go flat. And I'm trying to figure out, like, okay, why are the statistics so, like, not founder friendly? Why do so many VCs fail? And I think is we just get roped into like we just get roped into to this wrapper. Like we get roped into the glitter and the gold. Um, I think that's why thesis is so important for a VC, to stick to your thesis no matter what. And so I think the science of con artistry is a really interesting dynamic when you're evaluating startups. So you look at, okay, who's telling me about this startup? How did I find out about it? Did it come from someone that I trust? Or is it someone peddling junk, trying to rope me in, and sell me the goods without much substance? So that's one thing. And then the other thing is like, in terms of the, like the credibility, right? Like, is there an insight play here that I'm missing? So really digging deep. Is their deck just slapped together with a bunch of logos? What do those logos mean? Who are these logos? Oh, they're customers. Oh yeah, what they're customers? What kind of customers are they? Are they full-fledged users? Are they beta users? Did they, you just run them through a demo? What does customer mean? So actually digging into the materials on their deck. You've got great names as advisors on the deck, but what do they actually do for you on a day-to-day basis? So really digging in to some of that, not just words, but actually quantifiable answers here. So a lot of founders, they will dress up, these decks and make them look pretty and everything, but that's, if we can get past the inside man, it's not necessarily a man, it can be something intangible, right, in terms of the inside man. But if we can figure out what's going on, but behind closed doors, then that's where we get the real answers. And quite frankly, most of the pitches, 99% of the pitches I get are all about, look at me, this is what we did, we've been so successful. There's nothing bad. There's nothing bad. Like, there's nothing bad. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Perfect.
It's like, tell me something bad. Tell me something that you had to overcome is to like why you're still here, and stop trying to freaking shove shit in my face. Excuse me. But,
I love it.
Yeah. It's like, for example, me, like, I'll be straight up with founders and LPs. I'll tell you the good and the bad. Like, I've lost money. I've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars on deals. My transition outside of the Marine Corps wasn't the easiest one. It hasn't. I'm not this pretty picture that you imagine. Like, when I left the Marine Corps, I actually had a real tough time. I was very lost, and I don't have family, so I had to I don't have family to depend on. So I have to go and figure out how am I going to
everything.
survive. Yeah. I mean, I had it's crazy stories. Like, I had a DUI. I had to like $20,000. I had to freaking figure it out on my own, man. I still got to get to work. I got to pay all this money. I made a mistake, but like, I don't care. I'm here on a podcast and I'm like telling you that I had a DUI like freaking 13 years ago, but I really don't care, because we all make mistakes. It's like how we move from those mistakes. How do we move on? How do we get better? And so that's what I want to hear from founders is like, okay, you're great. Love the product that you're building. You've done some really cool things, but I'm sure that you've made mistakes. Tell me about that.
Yep.
So those are the things that I want to, yeah. Those are the things that I want to hear. I want to get down into the dirt, man, and because it's raw, it's gritty, building a startup. So, those are some of the things that I look for. I also look for, other aspects of what they're doing. Like, again, do they have a realistic picture of the market, right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Makes sense. Makes sense.
yeah,
So
yeah.
with AI, we've got about 20 minutes left. I think we'll probably finish up early, but with AI reshaping every industry, um, I just did this the other day, but what blind spots are you seeing early stage startups making today? And how can these founders avoid them?
Well, just not knowing what AI is, I think I was looking at an article by JP Morgan. They're just saying, like, look, the financial industry is really at risk right now because everyone is building AI wrapper companies, um, and it's putting the entire financial industry at risk. Um, so these AI wrapper companies, founders don't know what they're building, investors don't necessarily know what they're investing in. Um, I think we all just need to slow down and take a breather and stop, moving so quickly and really understand. I call it the Terminator effect, right? Really understand what we're building.
Love that movie.
Like
Yep.
Miles Dyson in the movie Judgment Day, Terminator. He's
Yep.
like, hey, when Arnold Schwarzenegger came in there with Linda Hamilton, he's like, I didn't realize what I built. I didn't know what I built would destroy the world. So, when we talk about generational outlier companies, uh, money is going to take those companies through different evolutions, right? And the company is going to change hands. So when that technology gets into the hands of other people, what is the potential collateral damage? So, I think we need to think about that, not just what's happening here in present day or in 5 years, but really think about the technologies that we're building and how, if it gets into the wrong hands, what the ripple effect could be, right? And so
Wow.
I don't necessarily think it's how we're um, building the technologies. There seems to be a lot of focus on how we're building these things. I
Hmm.
think there needs to be more focus on what we're allowing consumers to do. A great example could be like vehicles on the road. Um, we have no issues putting 800 horsepower Dodge Chargers on the road, right? Hemis. Um, but the rules say that you will only drive 60 miles an hour. So it's the rules that keep us in check from
Yep.
driving an 800 horsepower car 200 miles an hour down the road. So AI is very much like that
Yep.
800 horsepower car, right? But it is the rules that keep us in check because ultimately, I mean, we're going to have really powerful robots walking amongst us. It's already happening. They just released an AI robot into police robot in Thailand.
Yeah, I saw
You know?
that.
Yeah.
I saw
So
that.
this is happening, but it's if we don't build laws around the people and not the laws and regulations around AI, we're going to have a serious problem. So, and we already have a serious problem, and it's going to get worse. So
Wow.
that those are really important things. As far as founders missing things, that is why I built our I had our machine learning based ML based diligence model. So I actually came up with this model. It's based on a Cartesian coordinate system. Um, but I looked at Blockbuster. I looked at why they failed. Like there's no reason why Netflix should have came in and Blockbuster should not be here today. No reason. They have all the resources and money in the world. It
Yep.
was
Very
it
true.
was their mindset. It was their unadaptable mindset that caused them to not adopt new vision in a way that would make and keep them relevant in a VUCA environment to the market, right? Relevant vision. And so I'm looking like why do startups fail? Why do successful companies fail? And I thought about the Cartesian coordinate system. So if you're familiar, there's quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4,
Yeah.
counterclockwise.
Yeah.
And I looked at, okay, what if we plot it multi-factor criteria? Um, so it can be your revenue, It could be anything. Your revenue, all the things that you look at, right, when you're running a company, or that you don't look at, your revenue. It could be something as simple as the way an email is typed to a customer. So we have our salespeople use these email scripts, and they're sent out to the customers, but we don't know that it's causing it's causing our customers to view us in a certain way, right? And so the NLP goes in and grades this, and it says, oh, your customers, that these emails are actually off-putting, and it's affecting your sales quota. Your customers aren't buying simply because of the way these emails are written. Well, we didn't know that. Our customers aren't seeing that, right? And so it's this multi-factor criteria that we can grade a startup over time, x-axis being time, y-axis being scale, over time. And you can say, okay, the startup is here in quadrant 1, they're doing this great. Oh, they're here in quadrant 4, they're not doing that so well, right? Well, let's click into each grid point and let's dig a little bit further. So it's meant to be a clickable visual dashboard where you can a founder or an investor can go in and click on a grid point, say for example in quadrant 4, and we can see, okay, so our emails are actually hindering our sales quota. That's why our sales quota is dropping. And then it can deliver actionable, okay, this is what you can do to fix that, so to speak, to get this grid up in the quadrant 1, right? And so all companies start at 0, on the CCS system. So the idea is, how do you take a viable idea in quadrant 2 and move it to quadrant 1? If it's in like the founder that wanted to extract the water on a distant planet, that's quadrant 3. It's not feasible, right? And so we're going to stay away from those, right? So anyways, we built that into a prototype, and we're testing that in the market right now. It's really a tool that's meant to help investors and founders address their unknown unknowns, right? The blind spots, the things that we don't think about every day. And so we can stop missing things in due diligence. So we can stop making terrible investments. And so we can stop missing great investment opportunities, right? And so we can stop spending hours and hours and hours on due diligence and still miss things. And so it's meant to be a visual representation of everything that flows through a company internally, output and input, right? And so we're building that right now.
Wow, that's very cool. So last question, you're very heavily involved. I think it's the Silicon Valley Syndicate Club and a lot of high-level investor communities. What advice would you give? This is 90% of our founder network wants to know this. What advice would you give first-time founders trying to break into these elite circles and attract smart money?
Jeez, I'm thinking about, how do I do this?
Become a Marine.
I'll tell you. So I would say the first thing is learn how to sell. And I'm not talking, Shane, I'm not talking about 1980s slick back 3-piece suit, double-breasted suit. No, I'm not talking about the LinkedIn spam that we all get. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about relationship building. I learned how to sell when I had my first job out of the Marine Corps. Actually, I probably learned how to sell in the Marine Corps, but quite honestly, in corporate, it's about building relationships and really caring about people, right? Caring about people and having a purpose-driven mission, right? Your mission, your purpose is something that never changes. How you do to achieve that purpose will change, but your purpose, it never changes, right? And so you should be on a mission, and that should resonate with people, because people buy you first. They buy you, then they buy your company and your product. And so having a sales background ultimately I would get people coming up to me asking me for help raising money, founders.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about raising money, but as I did it more, I learned more. And eventually I was referred into a robotics VC firm, which was born out of Carnegie Mellon University. And I worked with them as a partner for venture partner for a few years. And then I launched my own fund. But gradually over time, is I apply my sales skills, my relationship building skills, my personal branding skills, is I applied that to the world of raising capital and investing. Over time, I naturally have acquired relationships, but I never forgot where I came from. And it's the people comes first. It doesn't matter how much money or they have or how much money they don't have. The people come first. And that has stuck with me. So that's how I've been able to build relationships in the high net worth community, because people see me as someone who is reliable, who's consistent, who is authentic, who focuses on the person, not just how much money can I get. It's not transactional for me, but I want to build relationships that ultimately last a lifetime. And so I think if you go with that, you'll go a long way. And at the end of the day, just realize that this is a long game. And when I became an entrepreneur, I took an oath to myself and I said, I'm going to do this. It was a life or death matter for me, not literally, but having that in my head makes me feel like I have no other choice but to succeed, but to keep going until I succeed, and to do things for the right reason, And when we make mistakes, because we all will, to take accountability for those things. And I think doing those things, taking accountability, being persistent in your purpose, and then focusing on the individuals and not being transactional, you'll have a lot of success and you'll acquire a lot of relationships in this space, and always go with a service mindset. So add value first. The VC firm that I worked for, I worked for them pro bono, for a long time. And then they brought me in as a paid partner. So I think if you do everything that you can to add value, people will see that. So
that's an awesome story. Absolutely awesome story, Paul. I'm really, really glad I've had you on. Last in 1 minute, what is the best piece of advice you would give yourself, let's say when you got out of the Marines, before the Marines, that really, really would help shape your life today? And if there's Paul Claxton that's watching, let's say Paul Claxton 2.0, he's watching you right now and he wants to know what to do. He's 18. What would you say to him right now? Or her?
That's a great question. Well, if I could go back to when I was 18, I would say stop being an idiot.
Same.
Take some of your money and invest it. Do more reading. Then do more reading. I'm an avid reader today, but I should have picked up more books, and I should have been smarter with my money. I think that would have helped me out tremendously. I'd probably be a lot richer today, but those are the things that I would have done differently. And I would say the other thing is, try not to just take the plunge, just dive in, and try not to let the try not to let the risk of failure, the potential of failure, prohibit you from doing things, because I failed so many times, but I'm still here. So you're not going to die, right?
I love the way you think.
It's not that serious, right? And actually, it's really good to fail, because my failures have taught me so much more than any of my successes have. They're painful. They're really painful. It sucks losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. It sucks,
Yeah.
but how else do you expect to learn? So you'll be better for it next time. And then last but not least, there's a saying, we've all heard it. If you want something done, you should just do it yourself.
Yeah.
That's true if you want something done right, you should do it yourself. That's true to an extent. If you want something done right, first do it yourself and then find someone to do it. And I say that because if you don't know how to do it yourself, like if you don't know how to write contracts, if you don't know how to analyze contracts, if you're talking to investors and you don't know what drag along rights are, you don't know what liquidation preference means, you don't know how to a convertible debt is properly how to properly structure a convertible debt agreement, how those things should look. If you don't understand what the point of a term sheet is, if you don't understand those things, if you don't understand the structure of a VC, if you then and you're raising capital, then you don't know what you're doing. If you don't understand SEC laws, if you don't understand SEC laws around like solicitation and non-solicitation and reverse solicitation, if you don't know those things, you have no business raising capital. And then last thing but not least, your cap table is your responsibility. It's not the investors. Your company is your responsibility. So, a lot of investors will kick tires. So will founders. But hey, it's the VCs. It's not a VC's job to write checks for you. It's not their job to write checks. That's probably like 10% of what we do. Their job is to perform due diligence and make calculated guesses or estimations that are based on sound decisions that say, hey, yes, we should invest. No, we should not invest. Mm-hmm. That's their job. It's not to write checks.
Well, look, I think that's it. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you, contact you? Where is the best place to find you? Is it LinkedIn? Any other channels?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Pretty easy to find me, Paul Anthony Claxton. You can find me on my personal website, paulclaxton.io.